This is question number 9 of homework 4. Steinberg Corporation and the Dietary Corporation are identical firms, except that Dietary is more levered. Both companies will remain in business for 1 more year. These companies' economists agree that the probability of the continuation of the current expansion is 80% for the next year, and the probability of the recession is 20%. If the expansion continues each year, each firm will generate EBIT of $4.1 billion. If a recession occurs, each firm will generate EBIT of $1.5 million. Steinberg's debt obligation requires the firm to pay $950,000 at the end of the year. Dieterich's debt obligation requires the firm to pay $1.6 million by the end of the year. Neither firm pays taxes, assume a discount rate of 14%. Part A-1, what are the current market values of Steinberg's equity and debt? So basically what happens in this question is that we have 2 firms. One has more leverage than the other, and both firms are identical in other aspects, including the EBIT, regardless of EBIT in the 2 economy states, recession and expansion. And also the discount rate, other information are similar. Probability of these 2 economy states also identical for these 2 firms. So the difference here is that both EBIT and the debt obligation will occur by the end of the year. So after the firm has paid the debt, and the rest of the EBIT belongs to the shareholders. So from that, we can calculate the shareholder value by the end of the year. And that value will depend on the specific economy state, right? Because under expansion, the EBIT will be higher, and under recession, EBIT will be lower. But debt will be the same for either of these 2 firms. So the value that goes to the shareholders will change with the change in EBIT. So that's basically the structure of this question. And then we can just use first to put everything into this worksheet, right? Every information into the worksheet. The probability of expansion, as we told, is 80%, and for the recession is 20%. And EBIT is $4.1 million, right? So that will be this, and for the under recession, it's $1.5 million. So the debt obligation for Steinberg is $950,000, and this will be the same for either state. So now the equity value can be easily derived, right? This is only the difference between the EBIT and the debt. After the firm pays the debt, the rest belongs to the equity value, to the equity holders. But later on, in the case of Dietary, we'll see that equity value, actually, if we follow the same formula, equity value will become a negative number, which will not be possible, because equity value means this is the market value of the equity. Market value of the equity can never be negative. Otherwise, it shows the price will be negative, which is not possible. So this gives us we can calculate the expected equity value at the year end. Because the equity value here depends on the economy state. We can just multiply the corresponding probability of that economy state and sum them up, and then we can get the expected equity value. So this will be the probability of expansion multiplied by the equity value under expansion plus the probability of recession multiplied by the equity value under recession. But this is the expected equity value at the year end. The question is asking us what is the current equity value. So what we need to do is to discount this back. The discount rate, as we are told, is 14%. So now S, which is the current market value of the equity, will be the expected equity value at the year end, discounted back 1 year to get the current market value of the equity. So we can now copy this number back to get the equity value. For debt value, in this case, regardless of economy state, debt value will always be $950,000. So we can just use that. But $950,000 is by the end of the year, so it's still similar to equity. We need to discount this back by 1 year to get the value of the debt. So this gives me the number, and now I can just get rid of this dollar sign here. Now I can calculate the total firm value. This equals S plus B. And from this setup, you can immediately tell that for either firm, the total firm value would be the same. Why? Because there's no taxes, and there are no, it doesn't mention anything about the financial distress, right? So if there are no taxes and if there are no costs of financial distress, then M&M Proposition I says that the firm value is independent of capital structure. So, and we can confirm whether that's the case using this as an example. So we are done with part A-1. A-2, what are the current market values of Dietary, equity, and debt? So Dietary has a higher level of debt, and other information are similar. So we just copy the number. And for the debt, let's go back and check the number. So it's $1.6 million. So it's 1.6 million. So this will be the same regardless of economy state. So equity value, if we follow the same way that we did equity value calculation in the case of the Steinberg, we can say that this is EBIT minus debt, right? And under expansion, this is okay because EBIT is higher than debt. But if you extend this formula to recession, you see that equity value becomes a negative number. And the reason is because in the case of the recession, EBIT is only $1.5 million, but debt obligation is $1.6 million. So EBIT is not sufficient to cover the debt, which makes equity value to be negative. But we know equity value cannot be negative. So that means we have to make this to be zero rather than negative. So now with that, we can calculate the expected equity value at the year end using the same formula as we did before. So it's going to be the probability of expansion multiplied by the equity value under expansion plus the probability of the recession multiplied by the equity value under recession. And discount rate, same as before, as the other firm. So S, which is the current value of the equity, that will be the expected equity value by year end, discounted 1 year back at this 14% discount rate. So this gives us the equity value for Dietary. Just copy that number back. And for debt value, so debt here will not be a constant under expansion because the full debt will be paid back. So the debt value under, in this case, will be the full debt or face debt value. But in the case of a recession, the firm only has $1.5 million, even though the debt obligation is 1.6. But debt holders only get 1.5. So their value will be EBIT rather than $1.6 million. So from these two numbers, we can also calculate the expected debt value at year end, which will be the probability of expansion multiplied by the debt value under expansion, plus the probability of a recession multiplied by the debt value under recession. And finally, we need to discount this value 1 year back to get the current market value of debt. So that will be 1 plus this discount rate. So now we can double check whether our M&M Proposition I indeed holds, given the numbers we come up with so far. So total firm value will be S plus B, right? So now you can see these two numbers are identical, right, as expected. And we still need to copy this number back, debt value. And don't forget to get rid of this dollar sign here. So part B, Steinberg's CEO recently stated that Steinberg's value should be higher than Dietary because the firm has less debt and therefore less bankruptcy risk. Do you agree or disagree? We should disagree, right? Because even though it does have less bankruptcy risk, actually it has no bankruptcy risk because Steinberg, no, yeah, it has because it's still levered, just have lower leverage ratio. But so as long as we don't have any costs associated with bankruptcy, then bankruptcy by itself is not a problem. And that's exactly the case here. So we should disagree and check our work. And we got it all right.